Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to talk more about the war that's happening in Israel. Specifically, I don't know if you saw the video I did yesterday with Rabbi Eli Michel. He's with Israel 365. He was the first one that I ever spoke to from Israel 365. I had done a video a long time ago where I went through like a compilation of all the different articles that they had done about um, preparations for the third temple. You know, we have the Temple Institute that have already uh, created all, or they've reconstructed all the vessels needed for use in the third temple. But not only that, they're also training the priests, the Kohanim and the Leviim. So the Kohanim are the priests and the Leviim are the Levites. And so what happened was that video did really well. It actually got up to beyond 100,000 viewers. I think only my only video to do so. And it caught their attention, Israel 365, because I must have driven a lot of traffic to Israel 365. So they reached out to me, and he was one of the first ones that I spoke to, and they're the ones that set me up with Rabbi Gerfine. And I've also interviewed Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, who is a journalist that works for them. And so anyway, I did this video with Ellie yesterday. I hope that you saw it. And, you know, I really felt for him because I've established this little relationship with them. I now have friends in Israel. Them, as well as Samantha Siegel, the girl that discovered fish near the Dead Sea. I've reached out to her on Facebook because we're friends on Facebook, but I haven't heard back from her. So I pray that she's okay. If I find out that she is, I'll let you know. But anyway, it was hard doing that interview with Ellie Michel because, you know, him and his family and all of his friends and family, they're all in danger right now. They're all in a very bad situation. And if you watch that interview, you could tell that emotions were running really high, as you would expect. You know, being on the receiving end of horrific attacks like what happened on Saturday, October 7th. I wanted to clarify some things here as far as like my point of view on what's going on and how we should react as disciples of Christ in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because things are very emotionally charged right now, obviously. The more you keep on top of what's happening in the war, the more that you look at these videos or even hear about what happened on Saturday, it really pulls you in and it weighs really heavy on your heart, because what happened was barbaric, and there were a bunch of atrocities and you know, things that go against the values of virtually all civilization. For any person that has a heart, it would basically just destroy your heart, seeing those images and hearing those sounds and listening to those stories. So what took place was completely horrible and it was awful. And what's going to be happening now and in coming days is also going to be horrible and awful as this war drags on. And there's a lot of suffering. And what happened was just completely evil. What happened was evil. This attack on Israel, the indiscriminate killing of civilians, taking them captive into Gaza as bargaining chips or human shields or whatever their grand plan is. It's all completely evil. I just want to make sure that that's clear as I go into what I want to share in this video. I think we have to be careful, however, and I was careful with the way that I spoke when I was talking to Ellie Michel in my responses, because even though I'm completely on his side that what happened was not right, it was evil, it was horrible, it was wrong. Um, I think we have to be careful when it comes to painting people like a people with broad strokes, right? Um, we kind of talk a lot about that on this channel. Just it comes up semi frequently, where we talk about being careful not to think of things in black and white terms. In other words, you take a category of people, and then in your mind you turn that entire category of people into all good or all bad. All right, because there was a lot of talk about, how the Palestinians are very radical, which I think, generally speaking, I think that's probably true. I mean, I don't have a way to like really ascertain the entirety of the Palestinian people, but it's apparent that there is a lot of support for terrorism and attacks like what we saw on Saturday. We see it not only in Israel, but we see it throughout the world. We've seen it in London, New York, down in Australia, across Europe. There's a lot of people that are cheering on what's happening, and they're not blind to the fact that there were these killings of innocent civilians. Okay, because you'll see videos of these people gathering in the street and holding rallies, and they'll have pictures of the dead civilians and stuff like that, and be like showing it to, because like usually, like, there's been a number of incidents where you have a pro-Palestinian rally and then you have a pro-Israeli rally, and they come in contact with one another, and you'll see pictures of these Palestinian supporters, like, showing those pictures of dead civilians to the Israeli side and celebrating it. It's horrible. So there definitely is a lot of support. I don't know how much a lot is. Again, there's I think we looked it up. It was like 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. So that's a lot. And we should not paint in broad strokes, but that doesn't mean that you can't support Israel in its efforts to defend itself and so forth. But I think that we are at risk if we don't watch ourselves of falling into the same trap that happened excuse me, after 9/11. And I've talked about this a number of times on the channel, after 9/11, but especially after the Iraq war took off. That's when polarization in the United States, I think, reached a completely new level. That's where the culture wars and civil strife really got a boost, because I didn't notice that much before or pre 9/11. It was after 9/11 that things just kind of went crazy. People took sides, and we had a lot of division and contention, and it was a horrible thing to witness and be a part of. And you don't want to feed into that. You don't want to stoke the flames. That doesn't mean that you don't have values. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in right and wrong, or that you don't take a side, but you also don't want to add to the polarization. It doesn't help anything. Excuse me. So I wanted to share something. This is a quote that I got a long time ago. This is from Howard W. Hunter, who later became president of the church, but this was back in 1979. It was a BYU devotional, and the name of the talk is "All Are Alike Unto God." So this is something that I think we should all keep in our minds as the days roll on, and as this conflict grows and most likely as it escalates into even worse things. Okay, so he says, at the present time, we are engaged in a project of beautifying the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem by a garden in memory of Orson Hyde, an early apostle of the church, and the dedicatory prayer he offered on the site. It is not because we favor one people over another. Jerusalem is sacred to the Jews, but it is also sacred to the Arabs. Okay, let that sink in for just a minute. And this is the position of the church. The church has not taken a stance on this conflict, the Arab-Israeli conflict. Okay. Now, I would say this. We do know how things are going to end up in the end. We know what the outcome is going to be of the final war, Gog and Magog. Before you type it, there's always somebody. There are two Gogs and Magogs. There's one before the millennium and one after the millennium. Go to the Bible dictionary, look it up. Look it up in other sources. There are two Gogs and Magogs. And then there's the battle of Armageddon. Okay. So, but whatever the case. Okay. So we know how things are ultimately going to end. Christ is going to come. He's going to save the Jews in their time of distress, which very well may be what we're about to see soon. I don't know. It's going to depend on how this war goes, but there's a very high potential for escalation. For the last couple of days, there's been a lot of talk about Hezbollah in the north and other groups that operate out of Syria and Iraq and the West Bank, and then on top of that, potentially nations stepping in like the United States, Iran, and others. So it's almost like, well, I'm not going to say it's like a World War I scenario, but the way that World War I took off was as a result of all these different treaties and alliances and stuff. This isn't quite the same, but there's a lot of different groups, I think, that will be triggered to join as certain red lines are crossed. I really do believe that it's just going to be boom, 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 just like a dog pile effect. But whatever the case, we know how things are going to end. We know that Christ is going to come and save the Jews from their enemies. And in this case, their enemies are doing some really bad, really evil, very atrocious, horrific things. They are evil. The ones that are carrying out these terrorist attacks. So I can easily see how that prophecy would be fulfilled, because if this continues to expand, if more Palestinians and Arabs in different parts of Israel start to join in, Jerusalem itself could find itself in a really bad situation really fast. Already there has been fighting in East Jerusalem. So it's already, I don't know, it's already kind of happening. But Christ will come, he will save them. And we know that ultimately Jerusalem is going to become one of the two world capitals during the millennium. I'm at the same time sure that there are many good, upright Arabs, Palestinians that will make it through the millennium, and that will live in peace in the land of Israel. Where they currently live. Maybe they'll move to other parts of the country or the land, whatever. I would not think that all of them 100% are going to be destroyed when Christ comes. So anyway, let's get back to this really quick. Okay, so It is not because we favor one people over another. Jerusalem is sacred to the Jews, but it is also sacred to the Arabs. A cabinet minister of Egypt once told me that if a bridge is ever built between Christianity and Islam, it must be built by the Mormon Church. In making inquiry as to the reason for his statement, I was impressed by his recitation of similarities and common bonds of brotherhood. Both the Jews and the Arabs are children of our Father. They are both children of promise. And as a church, we do not take sides. We have love for and an interest in each. The purpose of the gospel of Jesus Christ is to bring about love, unity, and brotherhood of the highest order. Like Nephi of old, may we be able to say, I have charity for the Jew, I also have charity for the Gentiles. To our friends of Judah, we say, we are your brethren of the house of Joseph. We feel close relationship to you. We are messengers of the true covenant and bear a message that God has spoken in this day and time. To our kinsmen of Abraham, we say, we are your brethren. We look upon no nation or nationality as second-class citizens. We invite all men to investigate our message and to receive our fellowship. To our brothers and sisters of all nationalities, we bear solemn witness and testify that God has spoken in our day and time, that heavenly messengers have been sent, that God has revealed his mind and will to a prophet, Joseph Smith. And as Andrew beckoned his brother Simon Peter to come and hear the Messiah, we will say to one and all, come and see. So we should not add to the division. Again, that's not to say that what Israel is doing, its response is not right, or to support it. But I think we want to be careful in our attitudes when it comes to an entire people. No doubt there's people on both sides that are good and that are bad. It's like that for any group. I don't think in this life it's possible to have one group, whether it's religious or economic or whatever, where everybody is perfectly good. Not even the church itself. That's why we have all these scriptures that have to do with the wheat and the tares. The ones that are true and the ones that are lookalikes. I've seen a lot of horrible things come out of this. But I've also seen, like from from Hamas and that side, I've also seen not so good of things happen on the Israeli side too. So, for example, for a while there's been this problem of Jews that are settlers in the West Bank, for example, that will carry out vigilante justice, or they'll just flat out burn houses of Palestinians and engage in that kind of behavior, right? It's not like the entirety of the Jewish nation is pure and good. You're going to have bad apples on both sides. People that think that the ends justify the means, or, you're always going to have psychopaths on both sides. People that don't care about, they just simply don't care. They don't love. They don't view others as having value. And that's like the big thing is, again, emotions are running high, but I think it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to dehumanize other people, even if they are bad, because when you dehumanize somebody, you're essentially giving yourself the justification to treat that person not as a human being. And even though people make very, very bad choices, everybody is still should be treated with dignity, respect, and everyone's rights should be preserved. That's not to say that the law shouldn't be enforced or war should not be engaged in. It should, and it is justified. But at the same time, we can't devolve into animals ourselves. We need to live like human beings and acknowledge the wrongs that are done and deal with them, but at the same time treat others with dignity and respect. So, and that's like that's one of the big problems when it comes to any sort of division, whether it's this war or whether it's politics, and the social war. The more entrenched we become in our own position, I think you tend to dehumanize the other side. And I know it's difficult, because you have your reasons for believing that you're right about an issue, and maybe you are right before God. Maybe you are right, but other people also have their agency. They also have their own ways of coming to their conclusions. Maybe it's faulty, maybe it's not, maybe they just, I don't know. Um, but we have to understand that, there's a lot of people that are trying to do the best that they can, and sometimes they'll end up going with a different understanding than you do. And so I think that's where we have to kind of come together. I know that there's no coming together with Hamas. Don't think that I'm saying that there is. There doesn't seem to be, and it seems like there have already been attempts made to come together with some of these groups, and they're not willing to negotiate, or they're not willing to compromise on anything, or maybe on certain issues. I realize that. Right now, I'm not talking about the Israeli conflict, the war that's going on, but just in general in life. I think that we always have to listen to the other side and see where we can agree, because I think sometimes you can agree, you can come together and find common ground. And then if there's things that you can't agree on, then just use the legal means available to you to work it out. And sometimes people win, sometimes people lose. But if it's done legally, then we should uphold the law and and honor the law. There's one other thing I wanted to read. So it's really interesting to me that April of this year, the April General Conference, we had this talk by President Nelson, Peacemakers Needed. This was his main talk of the April 2023 General Conference. And that is the main topic of his talk, is to be a peacemaker. So, and for all I know, maybe this came out when it did because of what we are getting into right now. Because if this war does escalate, if it expands, if it involves more than just Israel and these terrorist groups, if it becomes an international conflict, then there's just going to be more and more chaos and contention. So President Nelson says vulgarity, fault finding, and evil speaking of others are all too common. Too many pundits, politicians, entertainers, and other influencers throw insults constantly. I want to say something about that really quick. That's one thing that puts me off when it comes to, sometimes I'll see these other Christian groups from other denominations, and they so rigidly only side with Israel in everything, and basically take this black and white approach and essentially demonize the Arabs, the Muslims, the Palestinians, and that's not right. Not all of them do. Thankfully, there are some that are moderate. They don't think in black and white terms, They realize that all human lives have worth, and everybody is divine because we're all sons and daughters of God. But I would be careful with anybody out there if you're watching anybody and it doesn't seem like they view the value in the other side, the people of the other side. Okay, let me get back to this. Okay, so I am greatly concerned that so many people seem to believe that it is completely acceptable to condemn, malign, and vilify. And you know what? There has been a lot of these three things, but especially vilifying over the last few days on both sides. On both sides. And sometimes rightly so, but I think sometimes it goes beyond the people that are actually responsible. So let me just read that over. I am greatly concerned that so many people seem to believe that it is completely acceptable to condemn, malign, and vilify anyone who does not agree with them. Many seem eager to damage another's reputation with pathetic and pithy barbs. Anger never persuades. Hostility builds no one. Contention never leads to inspired solutions. Regrettably, we sometimes see contentious behavior even within our own ranks. So this is something that I work on all the time. I haven't perfected it yet. It's hard. When you talk about different topics, you're trying to arrive to the truth. There's always going to be people that believe something else, and debate's going to arise. And we just got to do our best to try and not get into the muck and treat each other with respect. Not to say that you have to back down on your position. It doesn't mean that you have to concede to the other person's point of view, because truth is truth, regardless of who believes in it or not. It goes on as truth. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful with that. Because sometimes it turns into a game of trying to force others to believe as you do, or to see your point of view. Let's see. I think I had some more. Oh, yeah. My dear brothers and sisters, this should not be. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we are to be examples of how to interact with others, especially when we have differences of opinion. One of the easiest ways to identify a true follower of Jesus Christ is how compassionately that person treats other people. Again, just so that there's no misunderstanding, I'm not trying to say that the war shouldn't happen, that Israel shouldn't retaliate. I think it's completely appropriate that they do. There has to be something done. You can't just have a group of people come and kill so many of your citizens and then take so many of them hostage, and then to again indiscriminately just kill civilians, and then also to fire rockets. That can't go on forever. There has to be some kind of solution, and I don't have the answer for what that solution is, other than what we know will eventually happen, that Christ will come. And when he does come, anyone that's living a telestial law, and I have no doubt that many of these people that were involved in these attacks, if not all of them, are living a telestial law. Because in order to carry out the things that took place, I think you would have to have lost your humanity and lost your heart, no matter how angry you are, no matter how justified you feel, and maybe in some ways, maybe some of their grievances are justified. It's very rare in any conflict, whether it's like a interpersonal conflict with individuals or whether it's between groups, nations. I think it's very uncommon to find a conflict where one side is completely 100% right, you know? So, but anyway, no matter how justified they may feel, or how you might feel, if you're a good person and if you have a heart, there are certain lines that you will not cross, because you have a heart, because you have standards, and you're able to recognize that maybe you've been wronged, maybe something has to be done, and so you feel like you need to carry that out. But when it comes to, again, like I said, just killing innocent people, unarmed people. So for example, there was that, I guess now what they're saying it was called is the Nova Festival. At first I heard it was called the Supernova Festival. Basically, um, it was a bunch of, they were probably mostly like secular Jews and people that weren't even Jews. They were having this rave in the desert, right? And but they were doing it because it was the day of Simchat Torah. It's a day of celebration. It's after the Feast of Tabernacles ends, or it's the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles after the 7-day period. And it's a time of celebration. And, here you just had all these young people. They were all, just having a good time, probably not in the most wholesome way, admittedly, but they were unarmed and completely taken by surprise. One of the most awful things that I've ever seen. Well, I probably shouldn't go that far because there have been some pretty awful things. But one of the sadder things was the fact that you have this video where someone was taking a video. And it doesn't seem like this person knew what was approaching them in the sky. This person was taking a video of like their friends, dancing and stuff like that. And in the background, in the sky, you could see the paragliders that were coming in that had armed gunmen that were coming for him. And I don't know if it was the paraglider guys that ultimately were the ones that gunned them down, because maybe they were going to like a nearby location. Maybe it was some other group. But the fact of the matter is that little did they know that death was upon them so unexpectedly. Obviously, none of them armed, or at least I don't think so. And then that created all these scenes of like the people running in the fields, because this dance, this rave, must have been kind of like out away from the town or whatever. So they were just running out in the open, and many of them were killed because they weren't armed. I couldn't imagine anyone that's terrestrial or celestial, no matter how angry or feeling, justified, would go that far. So only God knows the hearts of all these people, and we have to leave judgment to him because his judgment is a perfect judgment. Ours is not. We can see situations that seem just like completely obvious. It seems like all the facts are stacked up against a person, but only God really knows the truth. So we have to leave judgment to him, and we just have to do the best that we can given the circumstances. So in this case, Israel's doing what it feels it needs to do to correct the situation. And it seems that what they've decided to do is completely destroy Hamas. Specifically, what they've said is that they want to take away their military capabilities and they want to take away their governing capabilities or their governance. I think that that's just a nice way of saying that they're going to kill them all. And yeah, so when Christ comes, when those that are wicked, when the wicked are removed, probably the majority of these people that are willing to fire rockets, throw rocks, kill innocent people will be gone. They'll be removed. And we know that the definition of a terrestrial person is someone that lives an upright life. I don't think any terrestrial person would engage in any of these things. So, sorry, that kind of, I don't know how I started talking about that, but we're disciples of Christ. We cannot be dividers. And it doesn't matter that we're not there. We're not personally interacting with these people. It doesn't matter that they're not here. We still need to have integrity and think about the damage that we do when we encourage division, and when we participate in division, and when we dehumanize people. I don't know what it is. I think it's just it's human nature that, like, when something's happening somewhere else, you feel like it doesn't relate to you. Someone had said in the comments, like, they said something to the effect that, well, we were told that we as a church are going to have to go through lots of tribulation, so much so that it's going to be compared to the pioneers, and then we're going to be, honored for what we went through. And I don't feel like that's happened. And again, we are a very large church, and not everybody experiences the same things, for example. So, sorry. You have members of the church, for example, that are in Ukraine and in Russia right now, and they're going through an awful time. There's also Latter-day Saints that live in other places, like Lahaina, Hawaii, for example, that lost their home. There's other Latter-day Saints that get really persecuted for their beliefs, depending on where they live, maybe what their job is. So it may not happen to you personally, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. But, going back to this whole thing with, you're not there, you're not in Israel, so it's okay for you to talk any old way and, demonize the other side. That's not true. Because that's basically like doing works of darkness. You feel like the light is over there, and you think that you're in the darkness. No one can really see. Your actions don't really have consequences, but they do. That's like the whole concept behind internet trolling. Is you have people, and when you study narcissism, you learn that this explains some internet trolls, that they're narcissists. In public, some of them, they wouldn't talk the way that they do, like they do online. And it's because online, there's no accountability. There's no accountability. I look at your usernames and stuff, and how the heck am I supposed to know who you are unless you've told me who you are? And even then, does it really matter? Because we're probably pretty far away, you and me. Not everybody. Some of you are nearby. But it's called integrity. It's called doing the right thing even when people are not around to observe it. And doing it for the sake of the principle of being kind, being a peacemaker, because you actually believe those things. So, excuse me. So when you sit around the dinner table with your family, or you're, out hanging out with some friends, and these things come up, just because we're not in Israel, we're all the way over here in the United States or wherever you live, we still need to do the right thing and not add to the division. Why? Because that's what Christ would do. He would not add to the division. Again, that's not to say that we can't talk like we do here on the channel about what is going on, but there's a certain line that you cross when you start demonizing the other side and when you start painting with broad strokes. It's so easy to take a different culture like Muslims. They dress differently than we do. We're familiar with aspects of their religion, and there is such a thing as stereotypes, and sometimes we take the bad behavior from one section of a group and then apply it to the entire thing. And that's not right. There are a lot of good Muslims out there. In fact, when I was in the army, I had a company commander that was Muslim. She was a Muslim, and she was very kind. She actually did a really good job at her job. It's really interesting because she had the drill sergeant patch. So at one time she must have been enlisted and then became an officer. But she did a very good job at her job, and but she also really cared about the soldiers under her command. And I witnessed that personally. She's very good. I don't think that she would ever become radicalized because, there's times where you get to really know a person and you can tell. Well, that's not true with everybody. Some people, they don't know how to tell good from bad people. They just like take everybody for face value. But I feel like I can tell if someone's truly good, and I'm sure a lot of you can too. And she was good. She had a truly good heart. And I couldn't picture her supporting any of this. And there's undoubtedly many other Muslims that feel the same way. The other thing to keep in mind is Ellie Michelle brought up the fact that a lot of these Palestinians, they grow up indoctrinated. They're essentially, well, it's just like any culture, isn't it? Like you grow up in a culture and you adopt the beliefs and attitudes of that culture. And then it's your job, being a true disciple of Christ, to not adopt those things that are contrary to the gospel. Now, they don't have the gospel over there. It's a very intense situation. They have felt like they've been suffering ever since Israel became a state. And I'm not going to like diminish how they feel. I'm not going to say that they haven't truly suffered in whatever way. And that's not to say that Israel should not exist. I think that it should. It legally came into existence. It was a legal process that made the state of Israel. But you have to imagine what it would be like if it was you, if you grew up in a society like that, in where maybe you don't have so much access to other points of view, or everyone around you is like so stirred up in anger. Who are you going to turn to? It's basically everywhere. You can see how someone might easily just kind of adopt that lifestyle. This is my life. I'm a Palestinian. This is what we do. We want Israel gone, and then all of our problems are going to be gone, because there's probably a lot of that attitude. They think, the idea that, all we have to do is get them gone, and then all of our problems are solved. And that's usually never the case with anything in life. When we put all of our hopes on just like one thing and think that one thing is going to fix everything, that's usually not the case. It may fix some things, but usually not everything. But so it's just really complicated, and we have to think about individuals. We have to not take good people and clump them in with bad people. And, that's something that happens to us all the time as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You have a member of the church that is bad, that does something wrong, that offends somebody. And then for some people, it paints the whole church that way, you know, because of the way that they think. That doesn't mean that we're all bad. To the contrary, there are times when you have, you know, for example, a bishop or a priesthood leader that takes advantage of a situation and then they get themselves in trouble, sexual harassment or sexual assault, for example. That doesn't mean that the entire church is bad. It means that that individual person, uh, you know, lost their way. Or maybe they were just outright a terror in the first place. They never were truly a member of the church in their heart, just on paper. So, so I just want to say that. I want to make it clear where I'm coming from, because undoubtedly there's going to be more and more and more videos I do about this war. For the last little while, everything else has kind of gone to the side. I have seen some video of like flash flooding in Scotland and other places, Brazil, especially that one state, the Rio do Sul. I've been seeing. I think it's from there. I've been seeing more videos of like even more flooding in that part of Brazil. So things are still going on. There's earthquakes. But this has been taking all my attention just because of how I feel like how strange it is, how odd, and how big the implications are. You know, because for all we know, this may be the final war. This may be what it actually looks like. All we can say for sure is that there hasn't been an event like this in Israel's history. The only thing that compares is the Yom Kippur War. But again, that was limited to mostly just military personnel. It mostly took place in the Sinai. And there weren't very many civilians that were killed. It was a surprise attack, so it's comparable in that way. But in many ways, this one is worse because even though it was a surprise attack, it was a surprise attack in an age where we have all these different intelligence capabilities, unlike 50 years ago in 1973, when we didn't even have the internet. I imagine that it'd be easier to carry out a surprise attack back then than it would now. So that's something that makes this war, I think, unique and strange and weird and unbelievable. It's unbelievable to think that it happened. But anyway, the death toll already is sky high compared to other wars and conflicts that Israel's had. And today, I think, let's see, today's day 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I'm recording this on Tuesday night. That's why I'm wearing the same clothes that I wore in the interview with Ellie Michelle. So only 4 days in, and the death tolls are already that high, comparable to all these other conflicts, if not more. I showed you that in a previous video. And it's only the very beginning. They're going to be doing the ground invasion. In fact, I saw that Israel had notified Egypt that this ground invasion is going to take months. They're planning on it taking months. And then on top of that, it seems very likely that Hezbollah is going to join in. And while there has been some back and forth already with Hezbollah, the main thrust, the main salvo of rockets or whatever has not happened yet. We're waiting for that. We're waiting for that shoe to drop. So it's just going to go even higher. The death toll is, and like I said, the potential for escalation is very, very, very high. And the potential for a wider conflict with larger forces like the United States and Iran is high. And then the fact that, like I said, Hamas set the precedent of, just kill anybody, kill them all, kill them all. That's basically how they started this thing off. And they called the operation Al-Aqsa Flood, and also, I think also Al-Aqsa Storm, which gives the clear message to everybody that hears it. This is it. We're going to take care of this problem once and for all, and we're going to have complete control of the Temple Mount. And then all the talk about destroying Israel. So let's not forget our discipleship as disciples of Christ, that we need to be peacemakers. And like President Nelson said, let me go back here. One of the easiest ways to identify a true follower of Jesus Christ is how compassionately that person treats other people. And I would add people that talk online about them and how they talk about the other side. Just don't join in. If someone is being really negative and dehumanizing and just becoming very polarized and belligerent, don't let that rub off on you. Just change the channel, go to some other video. Well, I think that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.